My name is Chloe, and I'm 21 years old. For as long as I can remember, something always felt missing in my life, though I couldn't figure out what it was. It was just Mum and me, and we had a beautiful life together. She worked so hard to give me everything I needed. But as I got older, I started wondering about my father. Mum never talked about him. Every time I brought it up, she would change the subject. When I turned 16, I finally gathered the courage to ask her. One evening I said, "Mum, where is he?" Her face changed, and I instantly regretted asking. She was quiet for a long time before she said, "His name was Adam. He left us when you were just a baby." That was all she said, but it was enough to light a fire inside me. Who was Adam? Why did he leave us? And why didn't he care about us? The more I thought about it, the more I realized how little I knew about my own family. I started asking Mum small questions now and then, careful not to upset her. One evening, she told me Adam was a successful chef and owned a fancy restaurant. "He was always ambitious," she said with a sigh. But ambition came before us. That night, I searched his name online. To my shock, there he was. Adam Bennett, a millionaire restaurateur. His face was everywhere, smiling in interviews, posing with celebrities. My chest tightened. How could he live such a glamorous life and never think about me? I made up my mind that night. I was going to meet him. I didn't know how, but I wasn't going to give up. I spent hours on the computer reading about his restaurants and watching his interviews. He seemed so charming and kind, nothing like the man who had abandoned us. Then one day, I found his restaurant's website. It had an address and a contact form for inquiries. My heart raced. I could write to him, but what would I even say? "Hello, I'm the daughter you left behind?" It sounded absurd. I closed the website and just stared at the screen, frozen and unsure of my next move. The idea of writing to Adam wouldn't leave my mind. I decided to give it a try. In my notebook, I scribbled draft after draft, trying to find the right words. "Dear Adam," I started, but it felt too formal. I tried "Dear Dad," but it didn't feel right. Finally, I settled on, "Hello, my name is Chloe, and I believe you are my father." I poured out my heart, sharing my life and asking why he had left us. When I finished the letter, I didn't know whether to feel proud or terrified. Was I really going to send it? For days, the letter stayed hidden in my drawer. Every time I thought about sending it, doubts crept in. What if he ignored me? What if he didn't believe me? Mum noticed my distraction and asked if something was wrong. I wanted to tell her about the letter but feared upsetting her. Instead, I muttered something about schoolwork and tried to act normal. But deep down, I knew I couldn't keep the letter forever. One afternoon, while Mum was at work, I gathered my courage and typed the letter into the contact form on Adam's website. My hands trembled as I hit send. There was no turning back now. For days, I checked my email constantly, hoping for a reply. But there was nothing. The silence was worse than I imagined. Did he even see it? Did he care? The questions gnawed at me, leaving me feeling lost. Desperate, I decided to share my story online. I posted the letter on social media, explaining how I had tried to contact my father but got no response. "I just want to know why he left us," I wrote. To my surprise, the post gained attention quickly. People shared it, left supportive comments, and tagged Adam's accounts. By the end of the week, the post had gone viral. My story was everywhere, and I wondered if Adam had finally seen it. Soon, journalists began reaching out, wanting to know more about my story. I felt overwhelmed and questioned if I'd done the right thing. Mum wasn't happy when she found out. "You shouldn't have gone public," she said, shaking her head. But it was too late. My story was out there, and everyone had opinions. Some praised me for speaking up, while others accused me of seeking attention. I tried to ignore the negativity and focus on my goal, finding my father. Then, one evening, an email arrived. It was from Adam's assistant. The message was brief and formal, saying that Adam wanted to meet me. My heart raced as I read it again and again. He wanted to meet me. When I told Mum, she looked worried but promised to support me. "Just be careful," she said. "He's a stranger, no matter what." Her words lingered in my mind as I prepared to meet the man I had spent my entire life imagining. The day finally arrived. Adam had arranged for us to meet at one of his restaurants. As I walked in, my hands were clammy and my stomach twisted in nervous knots. Then I saw him, a tall man with graying hair and a hesitant smile. "Chloe," he said, standing up to greet me. I froze for a moment. He looked so different from the man I had imagined all these years. As we sat down, he immediately apologized for the delay in responding. "I wasn't sure how to handle this," he admitted. His honesty caught me off guard, but I wasn't ready to let him off the hook. Sitting across from Adam, I wrestled with my emotions. This was the man I had spent years searching for, but he felt like a stranger. "I'm sorry," he repeated, his voice softer now. "I didn't know how to respond to your letter." "But why?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Why did you leave? Why didn't you come back? Mum and we needed you." Adam sighed and ran a hand through his hair. "It's complicated, Chloe. Your mother and we were young. I wasn't ready to be a father, and I thought leaving was the best thing for everyone." His words hit like a slap. "You thought abandoning us was best?" I said, bitterness seeping into my voice. "I made mistakes," he said quietly, his eyes downcast. "And I've regretted them every day since." Regret wasn't enough. I wanted answers, but it became clear that the man sitting before me might not have them all. When I got home, Mum was waiting. "How did it go?" she asked cautiously. "It was strange," I replied, sinking into the couch beside her. He apologized, but he didn't really explain anything. It felt like he didn't know what to say. Mum sighed, her face a mix of sadness and frustration. Adam was always like that, avoiding problems instead of facing them. I hoped he'd changed. "Do you think he really regrets leaving us?" I asked, searching her face for answers. "I don't know," she said, pulling me into a hug. "But no matter what happens, remember this. You're enough, with or without him." Her words comforted me, but I couldn't shake the feeling that Adam was holding something back. As news of our meeting spread, people online had plenty to say. Some praised Adam for stepping up, while others slammed him for his past. It was overwhelming, and I found myself avoiding social media altogether. Adam, on the other hand, seemed to bask in the attention. He even gave a statement to a news outlet, expressing his regret and a desire to build a relationship with me. His words sounded genuine, but a part of me wondered if it was all for show. Mum warned me to stay cautious. "Adam cares a lot about his image," she said. "Don't let him turn this into a publicity stunt." I wanted to believe he was sincere, but doubt lingered. Could a man who ignored me for 16 years change overnight? A week later, Adam invited me to dinner at his home. "I want you to meet my family," he said over the phone. The idea of meeting his wife and children churned my stomach, but Mum encouraged me. "It's a chance to see how serious he is about including you in his life," she said. On the night of the dinner, I felt completely out of place. Adam's house was enormous, with luxury cars lining the driveway. His wife, Laura, greeted me warmly, and his younger kids were polite, though distant. Around the dinner table, I felt like an outsider. This was Adam's world, a world I had never been part of. After dinner, his son Max pulled me aside. "So, you're the mystery daughter," he said, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "I guess so," I replied cautiously. "Don't think you can just show up and take what's ours," he snapped, his eyes narrowing. "I'm not here for your money," I said, my voice trembling. "I just want to know my father." Max scoffed and stormed off, leaving me feeling more unwelcome than ever. The next morning, I woke up to a text from Adam. "I'm sorry about Max. He's protective, but he'll come around." I wasn't so sure. The dinner had shown me how complicated this situation really was. Despite the tension, Adam tried to make an effort. He invited me to his restaurants, introduced me to his staff, and even let me shadow him in the kitchen. Seeing him in his element, commanding the room with confidence, was fascinating. But it didn't erase the years he'd been absent. "Why now?" I asked him one day. "Why are you trying so hard to make up for lost time?" "Because I don't want to lose you again," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I've already missed too much." His words touched me, but the doubt in my heart lingered. Could he really make up for all those lost years? Over the next few weeks, I tried to adjust to this new reality. Adam introduced me to more of his world, his bustling restaurants, his staff, and even his quiet moments at home. One evening, he showed me how to make his signature creamy mushroom risotto. "You've got a knack for this," he said with a proud smile as I stirred the pot. For the first time, I felt a flicker of connection. It was strange, forming a bond with someone who had been a ghost in my life, but I found myself enjoying these moments. Still, the question lingered. Was this real, or was Adam trying to ease his guilt? When I shared my thoughts with Mum, she looked uneasy. "I'm glad he's trying," she said carefully. "But don't forget how much he's hurt you before. Protect your heart, Chloe." Her words stuck with me. I knew she wasn't trying to discourage me. She just didn't want me to get hurt again. She had lived through his betrayal too, and the scars were still there. One day, Adam invited me to a family barbecue. I hesitated, thinking about how Max had treated me, but I decided to go. Laura welcomed me warmly again, but Max barely acknowledged me. Surprisingly, his younger sister Sophie came over to sit with me. "I think it's cool that you're here," she said with a shy smile. Her kindness was a relief, but the event still felt awkward. I couldn't shake the feeling that I didn't belong in their world, no matter how hard Adam tried to include me. Later that evening, Max cornered me in the garden. "Why don't you just leave us alone?" he said angrily. "I'm not trying to take anything from you," I said, trying to stay calm. "I just want to know my father." "He's my father," Max snapped. "You've had nothing to do with him for 16 years, so why now?" His words stung, but I refused to back down. "Maybe if he'd been there, I wouldn't have had to wait 16 years, I shot back. Max glared at me, but I caught a flicker of doubt in his eyes. Without another word, he turned and walked away. To my surprise, Sophie began reaching out more after that barbecue. She sent me texts about her pets, asked about my life, and even invited me to hang out. One afternoon, we went to a cafe together. "Max will come around," she said confidently. "He's just stubborn." Her support meant more to me than I could express. One evening, Adam and I went for a walk in the park. It was a quiet moment, and he finally opened up about the past. "I was scared, Chloe," he admitted. "When your mom told me she was pregnant, I panicked. I didn't know how to be a father, so I ran." His honesty caught me off guard. "Do you regret it?" I asked softly. "Every single day," he said, his voice breaking. "I missed so much of your life, and I can never get that time back." For the first time, I saw the depth of his remorse. It didn't erase the pain he'd caused, but it made me believe he genuinely wanted to make things right. As we walked back, I felt a tiny spark of hope. Maybe this journey wasn't just about finding Adam. It was about finding myself, too. The media buzzed nonstop about my story, and Adam knew he needed to address it head-on. He held a press conference where he admitted his past mistakes and publicly acknowledged me as his daughter. "I made terrible choices," he said, his voice calm but firm. "But I want to be there for Chloe now, and I'm committed to making up for lost time." His words made waves in the media. Some hailed him for his honesty, while others claimed it was just an attempt to save his reputation. But for me, it didn't matter what anyone else thought. What mattered was that Adam was finally taking responsibility. One afternoon, Max showed up at my part-time job at the bookshop. "Can we talk?" he asked, looking awkward and unsure. I hesitated, then nodded. "I've been a jerk," he admitted, his voice laced with regret. "I just didn't know how to handle all of this. But Sophie says you're cool, and I trust her." His words threw me off guard. "I just want to know my father," I said, keeping it simple. "I get that," he said, offering a tentative smile. "Maybe we can start over." Mum finally agreed to meet Adam. The air was thick with tension as they sat across from each other. "I just want what's best for Chloe," Mum said, her voice firm. "I do too," Adam replied, his tone sincere. "I know I've let her down, but I want to make things right." The conversation was civil but strained. Still, it was progress, and I was grateful they both were trying. Over the next few months, Adam worked to be part of my life. He showed up to my school events, helped me with my studies, and even started teaching me about the restaurant business. Each gesture felt like a small bridge being built, slowly replacing the anger with trust. Laura and Sophie became my biggest supporters, and even Max started warming up to me. At one family dinner, Laura said, "We're glad you're here, Chloe. You're part of this family now." Her words made my heart swell. For the first time, I felt like I truly belonged. Adam surprised me with a small celebration for my 17th birthday. It was a simple gathering with both of my families, Mum, Mark, Mum's partner, and Adam's family, all in one place. As I blew out the candles, I realized how much had changed. My life wasn't perfect, but it was full of people who cared about me. Looking back, I saw that finding Adam wasn't just about reconnecting with my father. It was about discovering who I was. The journey had been messy, painful, and complicated, but it had brought me closer to the people who mattered most. Now I had a family that was bigger and more complicated than I had ever imagined, and for the first time, I felt whole. It was a small step, but it felt like progress.